Hey everybody, this is Mr. Grady. Welcome to another amazing, awesome, incredible, fantastic edition of CMA Math Academy. Before we get started, I have two shout outs I got to make. The first shout out goes to Jasmine Bowen for making our excellent intro video. We are even more official than we were before now that we have the intro video. The second shout out has to go to Judy Wynn, who made this amazing header banner for our YouTube page. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. We are about as cool as you can be on YouTube right now. So if you look, we have 96 subscribers. If we get to 100, me and Mr. Schrog have something special planned. And then when we get to 1,000, which at this pace will be like by Friday, when we get to 1,000, face reveal. Here we go. All right. So today's learning, what are we learning today? So we're going to learn how to write an equation in slope-intercept form from using a table as our main source. So we've talked about it a lot from a graph. Now we're going to talk about writing slope-intercept form from a table. Why are we learning this? The reason is so that we can learn to write equations from multiple pieces of information. So it's good to know how to write slope-intercept form from a graph, from a table, from word problems, many different ways. And then lastly, how will you know if you're successful today? So if you, at the end of class today, are able to determine the slope and the y-intercept from a table, then use those to write our equation. You will have it. You will be good to go. Okay, so let's jump in here. Today we're going to be on page 121. So I'm going to give you a few seconds. M2 121. Alright, so hopefully we are on page 121. There's one last thing we're going to do for setup here, and that is that either me or Mr. Schrog, depending on who you have, is going to give you a note card, and you're going to tape or glue the note card down in your book. That box that they put in there is just annoying, and it takes up all of our room to work, so we're going to use our note card to take some notes on. So I'm going to give you a few minutes here to get note cards passed out and taped in. Alright, this is your 15-second warning, 15 seconds to finish getting your note card in. Alright, so hopefully your note card is in place. We're going to start up at the top with some intro information and directions. And then we're going to get going. So here we go. So when I stop, everybody's got to read. Remember, we're a family, we're a team. We do everything together. So when I stop, every person is participating. Everybody's reading. Okay, here we go. At the top, just as you can determine the of a linear equation from a table of or a problem, you can also determine the y-intercept. Let's start with what you already the slope formula. Okay, let's look at the next part. So skip just a little bit. Here we go. So it says the table of values represents a relationship between the variables x and alright, so what it's wanting us to do basically, and I've covered the box up again because I would rather us write this down than just look and read, is it wants us to take our table that we have over here to the right, and it wants us to take this table, get information from it, find the slope, find the y-intercept, write out the whole equation. Okay, so really, that's stuff we can do. Okay, now I'm going to switch the page to the next page where it's zoomed in just a little. Okay, so here we go. Alright, so we're going to have some steps here that we're writing in our note card. The first step, let's put a 1 here. Okay, the first thing you're going to have to do is you need to go back to the table and you need to find the slope. So you're going to find the slope in the table. That's our first step. Okay? Now remember, to find the slope in a table, all we're doing is finding the difference. So the difference between 2 and 3, between 3 and 4, difference from 7 and 10 and 10 and 13. So I'm going to give you about 10 seconds here to find the differences between our x's and between our y's. Go. Okay, so we are going to share out as a class what our differences were. So on the count of 3, you're going to tell me the difference for x. Now remember, when we say this, it's plus something or minus something. Same thing for y, plus something or minus something. So on 3, we're just going to say our answer for the x's. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, so we should have said plus 1. So both of these have the same answer, plus 1. Let's try our y's on 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we should have said plus 3. Now remember, if we go back over to our note card here, that slope, okay, write the word slope. Slope is always y over x. So for us, when we write our slope, we would write ours as 3 over 1. Now in slope-intercept form, remember the equation y equals mx plus b. One of those letters represents the slope. So next to 3 over 1, I want you to put an equal sign and then fill in my blank right there. What letter represents slope in slope-intercept form? So just write it. You're writing the letter that represents the slope. Okay, so on 3, we're all going to say that letter. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, so the slope is represented by the letter m in our equation. Okay, so there's our first part. Find the slope. Put a number 2. Okay, here's the second part. The second step that you're going to do is you're going to pick a point from the table. So pick a point from the table, okay, to sub back into our equation. So we're going to pick a point from our table to sub back into our equation. Okay? So if we look over to our table, remember each of these rows represents points. So it's really just 2, 7 as a point, 3, 10 as a point, 4, 13 as a point. Okay? So we just have to pick one of those points. Now, anytime I'm doing math, I want to do the easiest thing possible. So when I pick points, I want to pick the easiest points I can, so the smallest numbers. So for us, our smallest numbers are 2 and 7. So we're going to come back over and we're going to write that point. So we're going to write 2 and 7. So here's our point. Now remember, in an ordered pair, the first value represents the x and the second value represents the y. So we're just taking those points and putting them into our equation. So let's remind ourselves real fast the equation. Remember, it's y equals mx plus b. Okay, so let's start to fill this in underneath it. So instead of y, in our ordered pair, we have 7 for y. Okay, so instead of y, we're going to put a 7 because it's in our ordered pair, equals. Now next is the letter m, but remember up above here, we already figured out what m was. M was 3 over 1. Okay, so it's going to say 7 equals 3 over 1. Okay. Then instead of x, we use the value of x in our ordered pair, which is a 2. Remember, we can't leave the 2 like this. They have to be separated. 3 over 1 and the number 2 can't be next to each other. So we use parentheses around them. So the only thing we don't know is the letter b. Now remember, b represents the y-intercept. This is what we have to figure out. So our job now is to solve this equation. So we're going to say solve for b. So the next job is to solve for b. Okay, so let's look at our equation here. We have 7 equals 3 over 1 times 2 plus b. So I'm going to take my equation and split it in half. and then I can start working to solve this. So my first job is to get rid of 3 over 1 times 2. So 3 over 1 is the same as positive 3 as a whole number. So 3 times 2 is really all we're doing. So on 3, we're going to say the answer to 3 times 2. Okay? 3 times 2 equals, all right, so 3 times 2 is 6. So we have 7 equals 6 plus b. Now again, we've got to get 6 to the other side, that constant, to have b all by itself. We know because of inverse operations that we're going to subtract 6, because 6 is positive. The inverse of positive 6 is negative 6, so we're subtracting 6. And then finally we end up with 7 minus 6, which is 1. The only thing left on the right side is b, so we bring that down, and our answer is 1 equals b. So there's the first two steps. We're ready for the last step. So our third step, okay? Our third step is we are going to rewrite our equation using our slope and y-intercept. So we're going to rewrite our equation using our slope and our y-intercept. So remember, our equation always starts off with y equals, m comes next. Remember, we already know what m is. M is 3 over 1. Okay. Next comes x plus b, and we just found out in the step before that b is 1. So we have 3 over 1x plus 1 is our answer. Okay, so let's look down below. So I know this is quite a bit of steps, but once we've done it a couple times, it'll go by pretty quickly. So let's look at number 1 and 2 here. So 1 reads, how would the worked example change if different points were chosen to calculate the slope? Okay, so let's think about that for a second. We're not going to answer it yet because we're really going to look at number 2 and then go back to number 1. So 2 wants us to go ahead and do that. 2 says use a different point from the table to calculate the y-intercept. Did we get the same y-intercept? Okay, so let's do this. So remember, before our point was 2, 7, so we're just going to use a different point. So we can use the same slope, so we're going to skip step 1 and go straight to step 2. Now I have room over here to the right underneath my table, so this is where I'm going to put my information. If you want to write it down below here, you can, or if you just want to write it where I do, that's totally fine too. Okay, so we're going to pick another point. So we've used 2, 7, can't use that, so we're just going to go to the next point, which would be 3, 10. Now again, 3 is our x value, 10 is our y value. That's what we're substituting in. So all we're doing is we're going to use this information to do the same thing we did on step 2. So instead of 7 equals, we have 10 equals, because 10 is our y. So 10 equals, we still have the same slope. Our slope's 3 over 1. In parentheses, we put our x value, which is 3 now. Again, we're getting this information from our new point, plus b. And again, we've got to solve for b. So I'm going to split my equation, and then I'm going to give you about 30 seconds here to figure out what b is. Alright, so hopefully we've had a chance to figure out what b is. Let's go through it real quick. Remember, 3 over 1 is just like saying 3, so 3 times 3 gave us 9. So we have 10 equals 9 plus b. Then we have to get rid of our 9, move it over to the other side. We're going to do that by subtracting 9 from both sides. And we have our answer. So on 3, we're all going to say what we got for b. So something equals b. You're going to say the number on 3. 1, 2, 3. Alright, we should add 1 equals b. So now that we've done our plugged our points back in and got our y-intercept, Now we go down to number 3 and we just substitute everything in and write the equation. So we still have y equals, so this is step 3. Okay, so if you want to kind of keep track, you can draw an arrow over here that we're just doing step 3. So y equals, our slope was still 3 over 1, then we have the x, and then we write our new y-intercept that we found, which was plus 1. Okay, so here's our final answer. So now that we've done this, I want you to go down and I want you to answer questions 1 and 2. So now that we've done it, see if you can answer 1 and 2. I'm going to give you about a minute here, 1 and 2. Ready, begin. Okay, so now that you've had some time to write, we're going to partner share your answers. So if you're partner 1, you're going to read the answer to question 1, what you have. And if you're partner 2, you're going to read your answer to question 2. Okay, so I'm going to give you some time to talk to each other, beginning with partner 1. Ready, start. Okay, now that you've had some time to share, we're going to move on to the next page. So I'll meet you over on the next page here. All right, so page 122 looks like this. At the top it says each table represents a linear relationship. Remember, linear means it would just make a straight line if we graphed it. So you need to determine the y-intercept using the formula. You're going to write your y-intercept in coordinate form, and all that means is we're writing it in slope-intercept form. That's what I want you to do. So you're going to write your answer in slope-intercept form. So you need to write the equation, just like what we did before, for these two tables. So you can see the timer's already up here. You're going to have 6 minutes to write the equation for both tables. So I'm going to hit play. 6 minutes starts now. Alright guys, so our time is up. So hopefully in that last 6 minutes you had a chance to work with somebody around you and get our answers. So let's check our work here. So let's go over to our next slide. So our last section is a word problem. This is actually very, very similar to what we did last week. So let's talk about it. We'll go through the directions written in black. When I stop, you read the next word. So everybody's following along where it says each context. Okay, here we go. Each context represents a linear. Determine the y-intercept using the slope. Write the y-intercept in coordinate. Explain what the y-intercept represents in each problem situation. So we're going to switch the directions just a smidge to fit what we've been doing. So we've already talked about this once, but where it says write in coordinate form, write the y-intercept in coordinate form, what we're going to do at the end is write it in slope-intercept form. So we're going to write it in slope-intercept form. So those are the directions that I want, slope-intercept form. Okay, so let's look at our problem here. Again, this is very, very similar to what we've already done, so hopefully it looks familiar. So number 5, again, when I stop, you read the next word. Kim spent $18 to purchase a ride-all-day pass for the park and to play 8. After playing a total of 20, she realized she'd spent. Okay, so again, like what we did last week, we're going to always pick out the independent and dependent variable. So let's write independent and dependent variable. Okay, so remember the independent variable is by itself, it's what we're in control of. The dependent variable is what is changing based on what we do. So in this case, what's changing for us is the dollars. So the dollars are the dependent variable. And what we're in control of is how many games we play. Okay? So remember, we're going to use this to make our ordered pair. So it's important to remember that our independent variable is our x's. Our dependent variable is our y. So it helps me if I put an x anywhere that says games. So I have 8 games and 20 games. And I'm going to put a y where my dollars are, just to keep things straight. Okay? So our first ordered pair is going to include 8 games and $18. So let's write that out. So we have 8 games and $18. Okay? And then we have our second order pair, so I'm going to give you a second. Write your second order pair. So we should have 20 games and $24. Okay? So now remember, we do x1, y1, and x2 and y2, and then we put that into our formula. So remember, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're just taking 24 minus 18 over 20 minus 8. And this is going to give us our slope. So I'm going to give you a second to subtract this out and get the slope. Remember, anytime we can reduce, we want to do that. So if you can reduce, go ahead and reduce it. So we should have had 24 minus 8 was 6. 20 minus 8 is 12, which we can reduce down to 1/2. So our slope is 1/2. Now normally we would stop there, but we have to take this and go ahead and find our y-intercept. So remember, you're going to pick one of our points. I again like to pick the points that are the smallest, so I'm going to use 8 and 18, and we're substituting this information along with our slope back into our equation. So it's just like what we just did, only we don't have a table to go off of. So instead of y equals, we're going to use our y1 value of 18. So we have 18 equals, and m is 1/2. So 18 equals 1/2. Our x is 8, so 1/2 8 plus b, and then we just work it out. So I'm going to give you some time here. You're going to work this out, get your answer for b. So you're going to work this all the way out until you have something equals b. After that, you're going to come over here and in this box, you're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form. And then once you're done with this, you're going to go down and answer number 6. So you're going to finish this problem up, go down and answer number 6, and then we will be ready to move on. Okay, go ahead and start.